Story of J.P. Morgan. Chapter 1, Early Life and Education. John Pierpont Morgan was born into a world of privilege and expectation on April 17, 1837, in Hartford, Connecticut. His father, Junius Spencer Morgan, was a distinguished financier, setting a precedent that John was destined to follow. Despite the advantages provided by his family's wealth, Morgan's early years were overshadowed by severe health challenges, which included frequent migraines, rheumatic fever, and a debilitating case of scarlet fever that left him physically weakened but intellectually untouched. As a child, Morgan was often confined indoors, away from the play and activity that occupied the lives of other children his age. This isolation, though initially a consequence of his health, became a crucible for developing his formidable focus on academic and financial studies. Morgan's father capitalized on this focus, ensuring that his son received an education that would prepare him for a career in finance. He was tutored at home and later attended the English High School of Boston, where he showed a keen aptitude for mathematics and the emerging field of economics. Recognizing the need for a broader education to groom him for leadership in global finance, Morgan was sent to study abroad. His European education began in Switzerland and continued in Germany, at the University of Göttingen, where he further honed his abilities and developed a network of international contacts. These experiences abroad not only expanded Morgan's understanding of the financial markets, but also exposed him to the cultural and political nuances that would later influence his business dealings. The pivotal moment of Morgan's early years came when he faced a severe bout of rheumatic fever, which threatened his life. His father, always thinking strategically, sent him to the Azore Islands, believing the mild climate and sea air would aid in his recovery. The young Morgan spent nearly a year in this remote locale, a period of solitude and introspection that shaped his resilience and determination. This time away from home and the conventional paths of society allowed Morgan to develop a unique perspective on life and business, emphasizing independence and self-reliance. Upon his return to the United States, fully recovered and intellectually enriched, Morgan was ready to embark on his professional journey. At the age of 19, he entered the financial world by joining the New York banking firm of Duncan, Sherman & Company, where he handled the American affairs of his father's London-based firm, George Peabody & Company. This position was not merely a job, but a test of his ability to apply his education and health-hardened resolve to real-world challenges. Chapter 2, Rise in Finance. In the late 1850s, John Pierpont Morgan started his career on Wall Street at Duncan, Sherman & Company, managing his father's firm's interests in America. This job was his first step into the banking world, but it was just the beginning of his journey to becoming a famous banker. Morgan quickly showed a strong understanding of the financial markets and had a talent for spotting good investment opportunities. He earned a reputation for making smart investments, even though they were often risky. For example, during a business trip to New Orleans in 1859, he decided to buy a large amount of unsold Brazilian coffee with company money. He managed to sell it for a big profit, proving he could make risky choices work in his favor. This success showed he had the skills to make profitable deals. When the American Civil War was about to start in 1861, Morgan decided to set up his own company, J. Pierpont Morgan & Company. This was a tough time for him personally, as he had just lost his wife, Amelia, to tuberculosis, which left him deeply saddened. Despite his personal loss, he focused on his business, which quickly grew by financing war supplies and dealing in government securities. This showed he was good at finding opportunities to make money, even during difficult times. Morgan's company did well by helping to fund the war and by taking advantage of the unstable economy. He began to invest in railroads, seeing them as a key area for growth. After the war, he took on the challenge of fixing the problems in the American railroad industry, which was losing money and poorly organized. He bought struggling railroads and made them more efficient and profitable through strict management and cost control. This method, later known as Morganization, became famous for showing how strong leadership and organization could make businesses more stable and successful. By the end of the 1870s, Morgan had become a very important person in American finance. His ability to turn around failing companies made him well known among other business leaders and set the stage for his future successes with companies like General Electric and U.S. Steel. Morgan's impact was huge, not just in business but also in shaping American industry, making him a key figure in the country's growth into a powerful industrial nation. This chapter highlights how J.P. Morgan went from being a promising young banker to a powerful figure in finance. His ability to take risks wisely, overcome personal hardships, and see potential in troubled businesses changed not only his own life but also the future of American business. Chapter 3: Dominance in Industry. By the late 1800s, J.P. Morgan had become a powerhouse in American finance. His business was flourishing, and he had a significant influence over several industries, especially railroads and steel. Morgan's big move in the railroad industry came from his strategy to buy up struggling railroad companies. At that time, many railroad companies were failing because there were too many of them competing against each other, which hurt their profits. Morgan saw an opportunity here. He bought these companies, merged them together, and managed them more efficiently. This process not only saved the railroads from failing, but also made them more profitable. By doing this, he could control much of the railroad industry, which was crucial for the country's economy. His influence didn't stop with railroads. Morgan also played a vital role in the creation of General Electric and U.S. Steel. These moves started when he saw another opportunity in the steel industry. In 1901, Andrew Carnegie, who owned Carnegie Steel, the largest steel company at the time, wanted to retire and sell his company. Morgan quickly stepped in and bought Carnegie Steel. He then combined it with several other steel companies to form U.S. Steel, which became the world's first billion-dollar corporation. This was a massive deal because it meant Morgan controlled a huge part of the American steel production, which was critical for building and industry. Besides steel and railroads, Morgan also helped finance Thomas Edison's electric light experiments, which led to the founding of General Electric. This company would go on to become a major player in the electric industry, proving Morgan's ability to spot and invest in future technologies. However, Morgan's methods and the vast power he held were often seen as controversial. He had a reputation for being tough and sometimes ruthless in business. This made him a target for criticism, especially from those who felt he had too much control over the economy. His business practices, particularly how he created monopolies by merging companies, led to calls for more regulation in business to prevent any one person or company from having too much power. In the early 1900s, his actions, along with those of other big businessmen, led to the government taking steps to regulate big businesses. This was a turning point in American history, as it marked the beginning of more government involvement in the economy to ensure fairness and competition. Chapter 4: Legacy and Scrutiny. As J.P. Morgan moved into the early 20th century, his influence over American industry was undeniable, but this power brought increased scrutiny and challenges. His methods and the enormous control he held over the economy began to raise concerns among the public and government officials about the risks of having too much power concentrated in the hands of a few businessmen. Morgan faced his most significant challenge during the presidency of Theodore Roosevelt, who was determined to curb the powers of monopolies and ensure fair competition. Roosevelt's administration took a hard stance against business practices that stifled competition, marking the beginning of what is known as the Progressive Era. In 1902, Roosevelt's government took action against Morgan's railroad monopoly, the Northern Securities Company, suing it for violating antitrust laws. The case went to the Supreme Court, which ultimately decided to break up the company. This legal battle was a significant blow to Morgan, symbolizing the end of an era where businessmen could operate with little government intervention. It also highlighted the changing attitudes toward business in the United States, as people and the government demanded more accountability and less concentration of power in any single entity's hands. Despite these challenges, Morgan's contributions to the American economy were enormous. He played a key role in preventing economic disasters on more than one occasion. During the Panic of 1893 and again in 1907, when financial crises threatened the American economy, Morgan orchestrated financial rescues that stabilized the markets. His ability to rally other bankers and business leaders to act in concert to avert financial collapse was unparalleled. However, the reliance on a single individual like Morgan to solve economic crises underscored the need for a more structured and formal system to manage financial stability. This led to the establishment of the Federal Reserve System in 1913, a central bank meant to oversee monetary policy and prevent the kind of economic turmoil that had periodically shaken the American economy. Morgan's death in 1913 marked the end of an era. He left behind a legacy that was as complex as it was impactful. On one hand, he helped build and shape several key industries that propelled the United States into a position of global economic leadership. On the other hand, his business practices spurred significant changes in how businesses were regulated and led to increased government oversight of the economy. In the years following his death, the company he founded continued to expand and evolve, eventually becoming part of what is today known as J.P. Morgan Chase, one of the largest and most influential financial institutions in the world. Morgan's legacy is a testament to the profound impact one individual can have on the development of a nation's economy, as well as the regulatory frameworks that govern it. Conclusion. J.P. Morgan's story reflects on his enduring influence, the controversies surrounding his accumulation of power, and his role in the evolution of American economic policies. His life and career highlight the delicate balance between business innovation and the need for regulatory oversight to ensure a stable and fair economic environment for all.